Good morning, everyone. Grand rising to you all. Welcome back to the All About Favor channel. And I just was led to do something a little bit different today. I know today is usually Testimony Tuesday, but I have been led, it's just been in my spirit all night long to kind of like pause that for today. And I want to talk about forgiveness. I read in a book by a Christian counselor, Steve Arterburn, and he's talking about forgiveness. See, with these tell the truths and these testimonies, and both of these are running together. See, a lot of people are giving their testimony, but they're telling the truth first. And when you get to that point where you're telling the truth about something, it means you are reliving some pain. When you are testifying something, it means you are reliving something that God brought you through. But forgiveness is something that I have seen over and over in these emails from you viewers, and I wanted to address this. Forgiveness is something that everybody wants, but it's not something everybody is willing to give. See, forgiveness is definitely part of your emotional well-being. And you're wondering, well, why are you saying that, Pastor KZ? Because forgiving someone who offended or who hurt you or who betrayed you, that is not an easy thing to do, especially if you have had a close relationship with that person. I heard somebody say a long time ago, there are three ships. Three ships. I preached about ships on Sunday's word for the day. But there are three ships, and I'm speaking metaphorically, that can sink you: kinship, friendship, and relationship. Those three, kinship, that's your relatives, your family. Friendships and relationships. Those three ships can sink you emotionally because it involves your heart. See, that is why Paul talks about in the book of Ephesians about guarding your heart and putting on the whole armor of God and starting with covering, putting that breastplate on that covers and protects your heart. And when you meet someone or when someone is in your family or in your life, you begin to open your heart to that person. And once you open your heart to a person, that is when the hurt begins to take place. And some of us won't acknowledge that. Some of us walk around in denial in saying that I'm really hurt, you injured me or wounded me, but you allow bitterness to set in, anger sets in, rage sets in, and now you got all of this rumination going on. And what that means is you play this offense in your mind over and over again. You can't let it go, and sometimes you hold grudges. God doesn't want us to do that. God does want us to forgive because he says if we don't forgive others, our Heavenly Father won't forgive us. But believe me, unresolved forgiveness, unresolved anger will keep you from moving forward because it locks you in a time machine. You're frozen emotionally in that moment that person hurt you. Furthermore, if you allow that unforgiveness to just set in, you get depressed and you get bitter, and you might just say things to people that you really don't mean, or sometimes you lash out at the wrong person. The person that you're lashing out to is not the person who hurt you. I just spoke something right there. See, when you forgive somebody, that doesn't mean you're condoning their behavior, saying it's all right what they did to you. That's not what it means. Forgiveness is not saying what you did is okay. It is saying there are consequences to your behavior, but the punishment, it doesn't belong to me, it belongs to God. And I've got to release myself or free myself of you and let go of this. Now, see, Also, a lot of people like to say, well, why don't you just forgive and forget and move on? Forgiveness doesn't mean you forget. It's foolish when people say that. Forgiveness does not mean you erase the wrong that was done to you out of your mind. See, a lot of people, you want to get to a testimony, but you want to forget all of this other stuff or pretend it never happened. That's not a true testimony. What you're doing now is lying. You're not testifying. You're telling a lie and you're lying to yourself. But sometimes it's not your fault you're doing it, because sometimes, depending on how you was raised and the home you grew up in or the environment you grew up in, sometimes lying is a way of life in order to cope and just make it through. Because if you really said, like on Tell the Truth Thursday, if you really said everything you wanted to say to a person or what a person has done to you, if you really said it, it will be a war zone. So forgiveness doesn't mean I don't forgot what you did to me. But it also doesn't mean every time you see them, you throw it up in their face, because that's not true forgiveness either. See, it is not also, and this is a big, big issue, especially in Christendom. Some Christians think when you forgive someone, because I've heard people stand up in testimony service and they testify, oh, I forgave them, everything is good now. That is great. But what about the people who can't? Because the offense or the hurt was so painful, it's hard to get to that point. God bless those of you who can get to that point. But you know what? You got to tell the truth when you're telling these testimonies that I didn't get there overnight. This took some time. Forgiveness does not mean restoring a person. It doesn't mean you restored that trust in that person again. Trust is something that is earned. You don't just give it to someone who doesn't deserve it. But that person who injured you, once you have decided that I'm going to work on this forgiveness thing with them, it doesn't mean I'm going to let you right back in my heart and let you back in my space. What it means that we're going to work on this, but it also might mean I will never trust you again. I have forgiven you for what you did, but our relationship is not going to be restored. It's okay to not reconcile with someone. Did y'all hear me? It's okay if you say, I'm not going to reconcile with you. I think I gave you that illustration a while back when Mary J. Blige was asked, can she forgive her ex-husband, or did she forgive him? And she said, yes, I have forgiven him, but I'm never going to, that relationship is not going to be restored. I don't want to reconcile. And she said, and I quote her, she said, forgiveness does not mean reconciliation. That was a powerful word right there. And I'm sharing it with somebody today who's struggling to forgive. And you're not only to forgive, but you're struggling if a relationship should be restored. Some of you just don't want to reconcile. And you know what? That's okay. You're not wrong for that. It's not easy to forgive. That's a very difficult situation, especially if it involves a transgression of betrayal or a transgression in which a confidence was broken, a trust has been broken. See, a lot of people say things intentionally to hurt you, and then they try to laugh it off as a joke. Or either they like to say, oh, you need to toughen up and get some thick skin. Or you have people who like to say, I'm going to tell you the truth and you need to be able to accept this and handle this. When that person really is not trying to help you or correct you or tell you the truth, what they're saying to you is to hurt you or to injure you or to make you feel bad. Now, forgiveness, bitterness, anger, all of those different emotions that cause you to feel some type of way, that is an anatomy of pain. You know, human anatomy that causes pain. Before you can move forward towards forgiveness, you've got to understand what happens when you're wounded. When you are wounded, let me put it to you this way. When someone takes a knife and they cut you, they're cutting into your flesh. And they cut deeply, not only just a little paper cut from like a piece of paper or a little cut like that. We're talking a cut that cuts deep inside you, and that can cause emotional devastation. It can be overwhelming. It can even paralyze you, and you react a certain way, especially when we're going back to the three ships, kinship. That's number one. Let's just pause it right there and talk about family wounds, family hurts. See, a lot of people, when they're doing their testimonies, sending them in, it always starts and stems from an injury, a wound. Even if they're talking about a testimony of a relationship has been restored, whether it's among siblings, whether it's among your spouse, whether it's with your parents, they always start off telling me about the wound, the injury, the deep pain. See, some people like to deny that they've hurt you. What about that? That's a curveball. You ever met people that said some really hurtful things or have done some hurtful things, or a combination of both, and they walk around when you mention it to them that they shut you down and make you feel like they're the victim? Like, I didn't say anything to hurt you. And you're saying like, yeah, you said that. And they're like, well, if I hurt you, I'm sorry. And they just roll right on. Those people really haven't given it a second thought about what they've done. You got to hold people accountable for their behavior. Now, other times, this is the one I don't want you to do, is to continue to stuff the pain down. You keep stuffing this down year after year after year, to now you're 60, 70, 80 years old, and you are walking around with hurt inside you because you deny that it happened, or because you've been programmed or you to believe that you need to just get over things and move on and let it go. Some people use that term so often until it kind of sickens me. You need to let it go and move on. First of all, you don't know how I feel about this. Subscribers, viewers, family, and friends, letting go is not something easy. Those words are very easy to say because they're very short words. Let, 3 words. It, go, 2 words. That's the easy part of letting it go. But sometimes pain causes a buildup inside. And you know what happens? A blow up occurs because now you're enraged. Have you ever blown up over something and it was a minor issue? That is what happens when you let things fester and go on and on and on year after year. It could be something very minor and you just go off. It's combustible. Something else I want to say. When you are walking in unforgiveness, sometimes you might retaliate because you want the hurt to go away, or because you want that person to hurt just like you hurt. What happens after retaliation? I hope some of you get your pen and pencils and papers and take some notes today. What happens then after retaliation? Now your mind is focused on revenge, revenge, revenge. I'm going to get you. I'm going to get you. Or what happens when you start praying for God to, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord? Now, you're not walking in unforgiveness then. You're truly just speaking a statement, but God can get them better than I can get them. But in your heart, you still injured. You still haven't addressed the person or addressed the fact that they need to be held accountable and that you want to get something off your chest and let them know what they did to you. Another response is simply to wallow in the pain and in the truth. And to be honest, You begin to just sit there and remind yourself over and over and over again of what they did. They don't deserve to be treated fair. Or I don't want to let go of this because what they did was wrong, and all of this other nonsense. You make your pain worse by recreating it over and over in your mind and focusing on what happened, focusing on the insult, the injury, the words that were said. And no matter how much you struggle with this, with unforgiveness or with anger, with bitterness, with rage, you cannot remake the past. You cannot go back in time. But let me share this with you. You forgive people for your own good, because as long as you refuse to let go of the hurt, you tied to that person the rest of your life. What do you mean, Pastor KZ? You giving that person free rent in your life. They're not thinking about you. All you're doing is thinking about them. You've got to learn that it's okay to speak up and say, hey, you stepping on my toes. You're hurting me. I need you to get your feet off my toes. Now that person know they're stepping on your feet. But they just, sometimes people do things to push your buttons. You ever met people like that? To push your buttons. But you got to forgive them for your own good. Again, forgiveness does not mean you are restoring them back to a certain place in your heart. And it does not mean reconciliation. Also, peace begins possible. You begin to get peace of mind because you're realizing, I'm not going to give this person any more of my energy. They're just not worth it. This situation is just not worth it. And you know what? Going back to kinship, friendship, and relationships, learn to love at a distance. And you know what? That's okay. Somebody, I know somebody out there is saying, Pastor KZ, everything you saying right now, I'm already doing. I got people that I love, but I feed them with a long handle spoon, or I love them at a distance. I'm not intrusive. I don't try to insert myself in their situation, in their lives. I don't go to their functions. I am good sitting over here. Go ahead and high five me if that's you. High five me if that's you. Now, I wanted to talk about that today. I just needed to get that off because I was looking at some of the testimonies for today. And pretty much a lot of these testimonies for today, you know, I had a couple of good positive testimonies where people have been delivered from certain things. But some of these testimonies, to getting to them, people are talking about this hurt. People are talking about forgiveness. But in reading these testimonies, I'm wondering, are you really speaking that you really have forgiven that person? Because I had one particular testimony where a young lady was talking, she's 32 years old, and she was saying that some things happened to her growing up in the home. And you know what? Let me pause it here. Do you know how many emails I have received about situations that happened when people were younger or when they were kids in the home? And it affects their adult lifehood. That's why I'm saying to you, this journaling and all of this writing down you've been doing, you have admitted that it is helping you. But this generational incest, yeah, I said it. Generational incest. Generational incest. Nobody want to deal with that. I got 13 emails in one day about it. Just in one day about it. Not to mention all of the tell the truths all go back to something happened when they were a child. These men, a lot of them are writing in because these men are broken, and because a lot of these men, y'all would not believe, was molested as little boys. But this one young lady, 32 years old, wrote in and she says, Pastor KZ, I'm confused as to what I'm testifying about, or am I doing a tell the truth? Because to get to what I want to testify about, how God brought me through something, I got to tell you the pain that I went through. I just want to say this to this young lady. Sometime to get to the testimony, you got to go through the pain. Mm. That wasn't just for you, young lady. That probably was for somebody else watching too. And I know now your question is, well, Pastor KZ, why does pain, suffering, hurt, disappointment, why does that precede the testimony? All I can tell you is that throughout God's word, there were people who went through so much stuff. And in the end, there's the testimony. Sometime God allows you to go through some things. And I am not talking about generational incest and molestation and rape and all of that stuff and physical violence and abuse. But there's some things you encounter in your life that you must go through in order for God to strengthen you and for God to prepare you for what's next. Now, no child deserves to be touched. No child deserves to be molested in any way. Now, these emails that I've been receiving about all of this generational molestation, generational rape, all of this generational things going on in the home, that has led me today to talk about forgiveness. And that is just so hard. And that is why I deviated from reading the testimonies today, because there's so much to unpack with how do these people get to forgiving their offender. See, I'm going to tell you something. And this came to me about 7 or 8 years ago in a dream. The words from the Lord came to me. And this is in my upcoming book. And it talks about you don't go on and you can't move on because you're stuck in a place. Sometime, like the young lady that's 32 years old, she began being molested at age 6 or 7, she said. And she said that I can remember those times. And she said this went on until I ran away from home when I was 15. Then when I ran away from home at 15, I'm out on the street and I'm thinking I'm going to a safe haven. And I find and go to one of my grandmothers on my paternal side, my dad's mom. I go to her house and live, but 4 or 5 of my uncles living up in there, and they had their way with me. Then I just left and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to just be on the street and be homeless. I'm safer out there with people than I am with my own blood. And to get to her testimony finally, it took a lot of other things of her going through, before she can even acknowledge that these things happen, because she said, I lived my life. I ended up getting a job. I have a good job. Went to college, went to junior college, got my AA degree. And I just kind of like blocked everything out of my mind from age 6 all the way up to 23. She said, I just would pretend. I pretended to be someone else. It's like the person I was born and the stuff I went through, I pretended I didn't know that person. So I became someone else, and I got very good at pretending to be someone else until one day it just all came down on me. She said, and actually it came down on me at my grandmother's funeral. And she said, when I left that cemetery and I was looking at all of those, and her quote was SOBs, she said, I just felt like I had a meltdown or a breakdown of some sort. Just seemed like everything started coming back to me. Things that I had suppressed for 10 years or so, or pretty much all my life. And it just all came down out on me, and I just felt like I was in a rage. But she said, after that, when I was able to admit what I've been through, when I was able to admit and own this person that all of my new friends know, all of the people on my job know, that person is not a real person. That is a person I created, because the person who I was, I couldn't sit in that pain. Every time I think about it, it just put me in bad space. So I pretended to be someone I wasn't. I created an image. Not only is that a testimony, but she's telling the truth. Now she's trying to unpack her question was, how do I forgive these people? I don't know how to walk in forgiveness. Yes, I am a member of a church. I'm a Christian. I sing in the choir. I do all of that. Go to Bible study. But this unforgiveness lingers because these people walking around all these years with their going on with their life. And then she said, what bothered me is I saw one of my little nieces who was about 12 and at the funeral. And I'm wondering, she said, because this little girl is so reserved, so quiet, and I realized that little girl is me. And I guarantee you what was done to me have been done to my little niece. And she said, I got a wake-up call then. And she says, I'm giving you this testimony because I've been writing down some ideas I had, and I'm going to open up a halfway house for kids who have been abused or something, by family members or friends or whoever, so that they will have a safe place that they can come. And she said, I thank God that over the years that he's allowed me, through having a good income, I'm just going to get a little building and stuff. And that's what I feel like I can do to help the next generation so they don't have to go through years and years of stuff like I have been. And she says, I know you always encourage us to get counseling, go to therapy, and I know I need to go and get help. And I'm just trying to put it together, but I am journaling. So I am glad today, everybody, viewers and subscribers, that God led me to just speak about forgiveness and unforgiveness and unpacking how to move on, unpacking, and acknowledging your hurt. It's all right to acknowledge your pain and be honest about it. Because you know what? Until you are honest about your feelings, healing does not happen. Healing does not happen. Now, I want to just thank you all for your patience today. Sometime I'll get on here and I'm led by the Holy Spirit to go another route. I know today was supposed to be a different day for you, and we were supposed to do a different topic today. But I just want to thank you for your patience. Thank you all for your support. And please remember the coldest water bottle. They come in different sizes and different colors. And they even come up in gallons now. You can get the gallon one. And this size is 32 ounce. When you go on their website, you can just click on all of the different sizes and the different colors. They've even added some new colors also. Also, they have not only just for cold beverages, they also have them for coffee as well. And they have different type of things. Just take a look at it. And if you decide to purchase something, just put all about favor in your ending invoice, and you'll get 10% off. Everybody, you're looking for the mugs. The mugs are gone. They're going to be gone. We are over 2,000 subscribers. Hooray! Thank you all so much. Continue. Like the video. Please hit the thumbs up button. Don't forget it. Don't just view it. Hit the like button. YouTube like to see that you liking the videos. Share them. Also share them with other people. Share them with other people. And please encourage other people to subscribe. And please, I encourage your comments. Make comments, because not only am I reading the comments, the other people watching are reading the comments. And you don't realize who you might help just by making a comment. So for those of you who are out there, please I want to thank you so much. Continue to like, share, subscribe. Continue viewing the videos. And I'll see you back in a little bit. Thank you so much for watching. Enjoy your day.